Hey YouTube, how you guys doing? It's Kyle here, and welcome to my video on Ultimate Management in Overwatch. I hope you guys enjoy, and I hope you learned something new. Alright guys, so first we're going to be talking about why ultimates are important to manage and what exactly that means. Then we'll be covering efficiency/inefficiency, one of my favorite topics in any game. And then we'll be following that up with some general ultimate tips, which is going to include planning/coordination, wasted ultimates, zoning ultimates, enemy ultimates, common ultimate mistakes and misconceptions, as well as dozens of other tips that I've picked up that I think are extremely important to know. It's also important that you notice that the clips in this video are all related to ultimates in some way. I'll also include text ratings of certain ultimates on the screen, and I'll briefly explain why they were good and bad. Now for some of the more important ultimates that you're going to see, I'm going to break that down and take a break from the guide to make sure that we fully understand what's happening and why it's so important. So first we're going to be talking about why ultimates are important to manage and what that means. Now remember, the main reason it's important to manage ultimates is efficiency versus inefficiency, and you need to think about them in that way, right? Generally the team that is more efficient with their ultimate use is going to win the game. And because the game is so heavily tied to team fights, using ultimates correctly is even more important. Remember that wasted ultimates can be the difference between winning and losing a team fight, especially support ultimates that are going to keep you alive. This is why it's so important that you manage your ultimates. And remember, managing ultimates means keeping track of everyone's ultimates, including the enemies, and coordinating them to use them together in the most efficient ways possible. Now it's time to talk about general ultimate management tips. And the first thing I want to talk about is efficiency, right? Efficiency is huge. Always think about your ultimates and really your gameplay in general in terms of how efficient you were with what you did. And also I want you to think about the other options, especially when it comes to ultimates. Remember, you want to be asking yourself questions like, was there a better time to use it? How many kills did I get / who did I save? And what would have made it better? You want to be as efficient as possible, right? So if there was a better time to use it, then you were very inefficient, right? But at the same time, remember, sometimes it's important to use your ultimates as much as possible, especially if you build them up quickly. So just keep that in the back of your mind. So next we're going to talk about planning your ultimates. But before we do that, I want to analyze this clip I have of Soldier here. Now as you can see, 3 DPS are engaging, or actually 2 DPS and 1 support are engaging me and I'm alone. I get my ultimate up and I have all 3 of them inside of this room. I ultimate here without even knowing Ana is there to help me, and I take down all 3 of these DPS as well as finding the Tracer, and I kill her with the Helix rocket. Now this was an extremely good ultimate, and it relied on me not getting stunned in some way. So because I was able to dodge any trap or stun given by the defensive players, I was able to take great advantage of those 3 being in such close vicinity and using my ultimate to maximize my efficiency with it. I don't think there was probably anything better I could have done in that entire game with that ultimate. Planning is extremely important when dealing with ultimates and team fights. You want to coordinate your ultimates with your team and make use of the quick chat feature to tell your team your ultimate charge, especially if you have no mic. Knowing what your team has available is crucial information before going into any team fight, and this is all part of the planning process. With that being said, it's also important to have a plan of attack for your team. This means talking about who you're going to focus down and when certain people will use which ultimate. A good example is Zarya saying she's going to wait for at least 3 people to bunch up before using her ultimate, or Genji telling you that he's going to be diving into the back line looking for supports with his ultimate. This planning process is crucial for winning team fights, and I highly advise anyone who wants to take the game seriously to help plan out your attack and use your ultimates correctly. So guys, using your ultimates in conjunction with other ultimates on your team is super important. As we just said, Zarya's black hole with either a McCree High Noon or a Tracer Pulse Bomb is really a beautiful thing to watch. Some ultimates are easier to dodge, so plan your ultimates in places where it's going to be hard for an enemy to escape. McCree's High Noon and Diva's ultimates really suffer from this because they're so easy to escape. Remember guys, for the love of God, if your ultimate leaves you vulnerable, make sure you ask for assistance from your team. For example, it could be Pharah asking for a distraction, or Reaper asking for a Zarya shield so he can use his ultimate to its maximum potential. Now we'll be talking about wasted ultimates. In this game on Dorado, you just saw a Mei and the enemy Zenyatta both waste their ultimates. The Zenyatta used it on himself to escape, and the Mei threw it the second she died. These are wasted ultimates unless they were planning on swapping heroes. I'm not sure if the Mei did, but I know the Zenyatta did not switch. Remember, don't use your ultimate at the tail end of a winning fight. This sometimes has to do with judgment, but at the end of the day, you just don't want to do it because it's really good to hold on to your ultimates. The same thing goes for not using your ultimate in a team fight that you clearly lost. That Mei and Zenyatta both had lost that point, not necessarily team fight, and they still ulted for no reason. It's just really a bad idea, and you really should never do it. Also, be aware of the health of your ultimate, if you're ulting I should say. There's no point jumping onto like a point with Reaper if you only have 15 health. You're going to want to have full health before you ult in almost every situation. In general, you want to try to stagger ultimates on defense to help stop multiple pushes. Also, if possible, use your ultimates a second after the enemy. An example would be Lucio's ultimate. If the enemies use it to engage, use yours on defense a second or two after to give you that few second advantage against the enemy team. Now I think that zoning ultimates are kind of hilarious because a lot of us use a zoning ultimate as sort of an excuse when we mess up our actual ultimate, especially with McCree, but zoning is very real and it can be useful. Zoning essentially means that you're blocking off an area or zone for whatever reason through the use of an ultimate. An example would be blocking off a capture point by using D.Va's ult. McCree, D.Va, Junkrat, Torb, Mei, and Hanzo are all heroes that have great zoning capabilities. Now you can technically zone with any ult and any hero, but I feel that the rest are far too valuable and would be highly inefficient to be used as a zoning ult. Now sometimes at the end of the game things can change, so there are some exceptions. Zarya's ultimate is a great one to use at the end of the game to try to stop people from getting into a point. So not only do you have to keep track of your ultimates, but you also have to try to keep track of the enemy ultimates to the best of your abilities. When you die, check their ultimate charge if possible in the kill cam. I have confirmed that you can do this, so do this whenever you can. Also, keep track of who is popping ultimates on the battlefield during team fights and make the call out. If a Genji is in your backline, you need to call it out so you all can turn around and focus him down before he can do maximum damage and get the maximum efficiency out of his ultimate. It's also good to know who is where to be able to gauge where you can be in a team fight on the battlefield and when it's safe to pop your ultimate. For example, you don't want to Genji into a pre-pop Zenyatta ultimate because you're not going to do anything. Wait till it's done to engage. Now let's go over some common ultimate mistakes and misconceptions. Using someone like Pharah's ultimate against a team with lots of ranged damage, like Widows, McCree, Soldiers, and Roadhogs, and even Ana, is just going to melt you and is a waste of your time. Don't do that. Using ultimates with low health, as I talked about, is a horrible idea. Don't do that as well. Using an ultimate just to keep yourself alive, like that Zenyatta did a few clips ago, is a horrible idea, especially when everyone's dead. You never really want to do that because it's just a huge waste of an ultimate that you could have used in the next team fight. Now I do want to talk about one misconception. Using an ultimate to kill one person, or as some people like to say, I got solo ulted, it's not always a bad thing. Sometimes it's really important, especially if you're taking down someone with an extremely valuable ultimate, like a Reinhardt or a support ultimate. Remember, it's not always bad, sometimes it is, but you kind of want to gauge how important is your ultimate versus the ultimate that that enemy player is going to have in the next team fight. And remember, sometimes it's really important to also engage off of that kill, so just keep that in mind. If you are going to solo ult, make sure your team is in a position to push off of that kill. Now let's break down this play of the game by Zarya. As you can see, she engages with a black hole. The enemy Zenyatta, who is on my team, brings out his ultimate to help dissipate some of that damage, but it just isn't enough and they're able to blow through. There's me dying. That was a really good ultimate, so keep that in mind. And here's the end of the game. Now, I use my ultimate here because there's literally no choice. So remember, guys, at the end of the game, it's okay to blow your ultimates if it means trying to save the game. Alright, guys, to wrap things up, remember to manage your ultimates, constantly being aware of who has what ultimate available, your team as well as the enemy. Remember to plan your plays around your ultimates, and to constantly think about what is the most efficient way to use your ultimate in every single fight. Keeping all this in mind, guys, I'm sure you will certainly improve and climb through the ranks. I hope that this guide helps some of you. I hope you learned something new. I hope you enjoyed it. And I hope you enjoyed seeing clips that are relevant to what I'm talking about for once. I know that was a big complaint, and I do apologize. So, guys, thank you so much for watching. Once again, guys, take it easy. Have a great day. I'll see you next time, and peace.